everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, don't keep the people waiting. This is one of our rewatch shows, and there have certainly been those this year when people were not particularly looking forward to it. I suspect, Tony, the audience will be very much looking forward to hearing our thoughts on Ohio State 42, Tennessee 17, and it wasn't that close.
No, it wasn't. It could have been worse for sure. We as we watched the game live, Tom down on the field through a little camera lens, and you through the little Casio. Is that right? And of course, I'm upstairs in the press box, and you can see some stuff. We don't get to watch the TV until we get home, and so we've both done that. Watched the broadcast version, and then you kind of formulate some new thoughts. You definitely see some new things. You have some things confirmed as well. Tom, the first thing I want to throw out there, and I know we've got a show talking about ESPN's broadcast and the things that the narratives that spun out of that. But I will say, this looked awesome on television. This looked incredible with the crowd and the fireworks and a lot of great drone footage from outside the stadium. I feel bad for the people at Goodyear because Blimp's going to go out of business, but you don't really need that anymore with the drone thing, the drone shots that they have. Look fantastic, full crowd. I love the fact that Tennessee fans traveled as well as they did. I did see a little newscast on Twitter from a Tennessee news station where fans were leaving in the first quarter, and they were talking to them about why they're leaving in the first quarter. And you got people like, well, when you get down 21-0, it's really hard to come back. And you got other guys saying, well, I'm cold. I want to go watch it somewhere warm. And it's like, it's a bad start. And, I just wasn't feeling it. And so, first quarter is a brand new record. You can't leave any earlier than that. I mean, that's crazy.
It's hard to watch. Very hard to watch.
It's cold, too.
It's cold, yeah.
It's cold.
Yeah.
Sad. We're not doing well. Nope. So, decided to leave. I can't take it.
Honestly, just disappointed at the end of the day. We didn't show up at all. That first penalty we had with the face mask really put things in perspective. But 21 unanswered points. When we go down, 2-3 touchdowns are hard to come back.
Man, I'm disappointed. I drove 6 hours here, and, I'm not really happy with the performance they put on. But, it is what it is. Going to warm up, watch from the hotel, and we'll see how it goes.
I saw that same clip, and it was just this one woman who very clearly has been crying, and it's like, madam, it is still the first quarter of this football game, and yes, things are not going extremely well for your team right now, but you have presumably, based on your accent, you have driven many hours to get here and probably purchased a hotel room, and you could stick it out maybe and just sort of see if things improve, and they improved briefly, but not for any appreciable amount of time. But that was pretty funny. And we did talk a bunch about the whole everything that they talked about on the broadcast. We talked about on a previous episode of this show, which you can find on our YouTube channel or in the Buckeye Weekly Podcast feed. But the broadcast was visually great. There was one thing that I kept going, why on earth is that camera? There was a camera that constantly looked like it was out of focus, one of the low sideline angled cameras. And I finally figured out what it was. Because I'm like, why is the director cutting to this camera when it's never in focus? And I don't know if this is me being a TV person and nitpicking stuff, but the low sideline angle camera constantly was like a real soft focus. I'm like, is the camera broken? Why do they keep cutting to it? I think that was shooting through the Ohio State bench area where they had all those heaters, and it was either the waves of heat or the steam or something like that. Because it was very obviously everything is crystal clear, 8K or whatever. And then there's one camera that looks like it's the one that Barbara Walters used to use with Vaseline smeared on the lens. It was what? Why are they using the Barbara Walters camera angle here? But that's filter. That's what I think it was. So there you go, Tony. I got to nitpick a TV broadcast on here. So now everyone can go home happy.
This was the first game we've had at Ohio Stadium with two of the camera trucks on the track there. Is that right? Because it's usually just one going back
Yeah,
up and
usually
down.
it's just one sideline. Yeah.
And there are two out there. I think one for the sideline color, basically, and getting shots of the bench and things like that. But so yeah, I since you've already nitpicked, I will then take it back and talk about how about Nico Iamaleava getting his helmet cracked by Cody Simon. Holy cow. We have talked for 2 weeks straight about this guy takes shots, and we told people he is going to take some shots. I didn't think he's going to get his helmet cracked. If Josh Heupel is not going to protect this man by either getting him a better offensive line or teaching him how to slide. Remember Dwayne Haskins could not slide well, and they had to like really, and maybe even Justin Fields, although he was a baseball player, but they have to protect this dude because he's not going to make it very long. He can't get out of his own way. And that's a compliment. He is tough. He wants every last inch, but it is not safe to be doing what he continues to do. He's already got one concussion this year, and they need to protect him. They need to urge him to get down. And if you need him to get 2 extra yards for you, you are an abomination as an offensive coordinator. You should not need your quarterback to get you those yards when you are this offensive guru who's spread everything out. I felt bad for him because he's getting hit all over the place. And that's not in the backfield. That's 6 yards downfield when he doesn't need to. He needs to get down or something bad is going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like you have to kind of balance this where he played his absolute butt off. And he didn't have a great game, but his wide receivers are not fantastic, as we discussed during the week. The offensive line was, not great. Not great is probably charitable, but the offensive line was constantly a problem. And then his star running back was banged up and really didn't play much at all. And then the second string running back also got hurt. And, they're down their depth chart there. And, none of that is why the injuries are not why Tennessee lost the game. None of those guys play on defense. They had plenty of problems on defense, and we'll get to those later. But Iamaleava has to get protected from himself. Like, he is just, there is a certain kind of athlete, and we talked about this before the game, where this dude has very clearly always been the best athlete on the field. And he has always been able to just sort of magic his way into the run around and do something cool play, and then we win. Like, I bet he never once in his life lost a flag football game. They talked about how he was like an incredible volleyball player. I bet they didn't lose very many volleyball games. Like, he has always just been able to just sort of do it. And congratulations, you have gone from big fish in a small pond to still pretty big fish, but in a much bigger pond. You were not facing Caleb Downs. You were not facing Lathan Ransom. You were not facing Cody Simon. You were not facing Jack Sawyer. You were not facing JT Tuimoloau in high school. Now they're there. You can't do all of this stuff. And that's something you probably eventually figure out as a player. But as a coaching staff, you've got to help him figure that out. My dude, get down, slide, save yourself the 2 yards and save yourself the hit. And I thought it was certainly a choice to have him out there continuing to run into the line as they're down 42-10 in the fourth quarter with 3 minutes left in the game. Like, is this rock and jock? Are you going to hit the Dan Cortez 35-point touchdown here for a comeback win? I suspect that you are not. So maybe it's time to save this guy from himself and let him just take it. You know what? Listen, you played a hell of a game. You did everything you could. Tip your cap and let the backup play a little bit. They have a backup. We saw him play at times when Iamaleava got hurt because he was trying to do too much in some games. Throw the backup in, protect him from himself. You don't need to take more hits. And that was, it was a mixture of, man, I admire the heck out of this kid, incredible guts. But you've got to, as an adult, you have to be the adult in the room. It's right there in the title. You have to be the adult in the room, and you have to say, look, we appreciate it. Go ahead and sit up, throw a coat on. It'll be okay. We appreciate your effort. Time to let someone else try.
I haven't seen a quarterback beaten that bad since Tua's dad once got after him for throwing an interception when he was a junior in high school.
The views of Tony Gerdeman do not reflect the views of the Buckeye Weekly Podcast et
Kind of.
cetera, et cetera. Tony, speaking of transitions, let's talk about the Ohio State offensive line.
Yes.
Because the Ohio State offensive line was, let's start from the outside in. The tackles were phenomenal. I went into this game thinking, if they can keep the Tennessee defensive ends from having an impact, they're going to be in pretty good shape. And Donovan Jackson, I don't think I even heard them say Donovan Jackson's name on the broadcast. Donovan Jackson was so good there. Josh Fryer, the one time you heard them say something negative about Josh Fryer was when he had just apparently gone down, hurt his ankle, and they'd had to tape him up, and then he goes back in there, and then he got beat maybe once when he was still probably sort of figuring it out, and or they were waiting for, the painkillers or whatever to kick in to make him be able to play a little better, whatever it was. Those guys played their butts off. And the interior of the line, you didn't hear any complaints about Carson Hinsman. I don't think they said Carson Hinsman's name once during the game. That's if you were an offensive lineman, and we're not talking about you on the broadcast, like, that's good. That means you're doing your job. And even the guards had moments. I don't know that I heard anything negative about Searveld. There was one play where Montgomery kind of got beat, and it got, Will Howard kind of had to rush a throw. And then there was one play very early, the first drive where Tager Shabola got really whooped. And that was the one where there was the face mask. That was, Tager got beat on that one. But later on, goal line, they had a play where it was, I think, Fryer and Tegra who double teamed a guy and just drove him back into the end zone on a touchdown for Quinshon Judkins. That's a pretty decent Tennessee defensive line. It's not the greatest defensive line in the world, but that was certainly the strength of that defense, and it was the strength of one of the better defenses in the country. And the Ohio State offensive line, patchwork Ohio State offensive line, where they had 3 guards for 2 positions, and it was just kind of like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. And they really dominated the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, it was impressive. And I'll go back to the tackles as well. They were both really, really good. And Josh Fryer, so he went down on the pass downfield to Emeka Egbuka for like 36 yards or 31 yards or whatever. So he's down, and yet they're hurrying to the line so that they can snap it. So he hurts his ankle, and I'm assuming at some point he runs all the way down there and he gets set up. And then they have the near butt fumble, I think was that play. And then the next play was a touchdown. And then he was finally able to go get taped. But credit him, you hurt your ankle. And it's like, oh, we're running no huddle? Okay, let me run 30, 40 yards downfield to get ready to get set. And he did it. But you see him after the game, he's happy as heck. He looks completely fine. But he's one of the happiest guys in terms of a win. But yeah, just really good job of like, oh, I'm hurt. Not right now. I ain't got time to bleed, as the saying goes. And he got down there. Donovan Jackson, to me, he looks like he should have been playing left tackle forever. I mean, he is really, really good now. And it's hard not to imagine or to think like, how will this apply to the Rose Bowl and Oregon? And I thought they did a really good job of utilizing their guards and utilizing their strengths, but also, as Ryan Day said and Chip Kelly said, minimizing the weaknesses. And a lot of times you'll notice the guards would be pulling and the play's going the other way. So like the guards aren't even getting involved. They're just taking defenders away, which is kind of the job anyway. Like, eliminate defenders. Okay, we'll pull them that way, but the run's going that way. And so they did a good job there. But as Ryan Day said after the game, when you don't notice the guards, that means they've done a good job. But you also did notice them for doing some good things. And there was one where Luke Montgomery put a dude on his back, and I thought he did well. So I didn't expect it to work as well, that 3-man rotation, but it did. And as Ryan Day said after the game, he expects it to continue that way. Because once you've got something working, and I think it did work, but also credit the game plan, the execution, it all went together really, really well. And the running game, passing game didn't matter. Tennessee didn't know what was going on for most of that game. Like, they need to do a rewatch, which they are, to see exactly what happened.
And one of the things that was really interesting about the misdirection, where you've got the guards pulling and then they're going, guards and tackles pulling, and then you're going the other direction, is now that's on film. So, now that won't work against Oregon. Well, guess what? Now Oregon's linebackers have to sit for a minute and wait and figure out, okay, I see the guards pulling, and normally my key would be, well, there's my key. I got to follow those guys. Now I got to wait. So now that probably makes the actual follow the pulling guys plays more effective. So, they can continue to iterate off of that, and that can continue to be something they use effectively in the run game.
Yeah. Go ahead. You're up.
Well, I was going to say sort of related was James Pierce. We talked about James Pierce and Josh Jacobs.
Joshua Josephs.
Yes. Too many J names. Too many. Stop having J first names for your first name and your last name when there are so many J first names. Anyway, not my problem. And he wasn't Ohio State's problem. I don't think I heard his name. I don't know that I saw him on the broadcast. James Pierce. I noticed James Pierce once during the game, and during the rewatch, I saw him a couple times. He had a couple plays, but during the actual game, I noticed him once, and that was after TreVeyon Henderson had scored a touchdown to make it 42-0. He was sort of looking wistfully up at the scoreboard. I have a picture of him looking wistfully up at the scoreboard. I'm like, oh yeah, James Pierce. I forgot he was a thing. And that was in the fourth quarter. And that was, that's a potential first-round NFL draft pick. And it was just kind of like, oh yeah, him. And then you contrast that to Ohio State's defensive ends. Ohio State's, whole defensive line really, they whooped Tennessee. Tennessee got whooped up front. And it wasn't just, we had sort of circled the right tackle, John Campbell, as like, watch this space. But the left tackle got whooped. They ran stuff inside. Tyleik Williams had a big game. It was really, really effective. And you're looking at this Ohio State defensive line, and I'm already thinking about the Rose Bowl, and Lord knows we'll have plenty of shows between now and the Rose Bowl. But how much has the Ohio State defense changed, and how different is the Ohio State defense that Oregon's going to see in Pasadena from the one that they saw in Eugene? Because that was the game that spurred all the changes. So you feel like, we've played this team. We know what we're going to see. It's like, well, you might want to pop on some film from games subsequent to that game in Eugene, because things have changed, and things have changed for the better for the Ohio State defense, and just how incredibly impactful. I think they had Jack Sawyer credited with one pass breakup. I know he had at least two. JT Tuimoloau had one. They constantly were getting in passing lanes. Tennessee absolutely never looked comfortable, and that all started with the fact that they couldn't run the ball, which, again, those guys are so good against the run that Ohio State was able to just kind of play the whole game with just, okay, they were bringing pressure early. And then at some point you got to a point where it's just like, okay, well, we'll just have the 4 defensive linemen apply pressure. And sometimes it was 3, and one of them would just kind of come back and sit back and spy, and then just drop the other 7 guys and make Tennessee try and pick you apart. And they couldn't. But that's all because the defensive line was dominating the game so much.
And Cody Simon did a good job of reading, and the defensive ends did a good job of reading and waiting for the pass. Cody Simon had a breakup. JT Tuimoloau was credited with 1. Sonny Styles had 1. Jack Sawyer had 2. Did a really good job there. And Tennessee was fortunate that 1 or 2 of those didn't turn into pick sixes. Those are tough grabs, but they could get. Ask Penn State, you can knock them up and catch them and take off with them. Overall, the defensive line this was like many of the other first round games where just a mismatch in terms of the defensive line versus the offensive line. And I hope we prepared people well enough for the Tennessee offensive line and the advantage of Ohio State's defensive ends that they had. And we talked a lot about James Pierce, and we prepared people for James Pierce. And rewatching it, I think you saw him twice. One was a tackle for loss on Quinshon Judkins on the backside, and the other was blowing up the third one screen out wide to Emeka Egbuka. If that's his impact, you're going to take that 10 times out of 10, because he did not get near, he didn't touch Will Howard. And that was a winning thing. And that's what we talked about. If they protect Will Howard, Ohio State's going to throw the ball well, and they're going to win. And boy, that's exactly what they did. How about the tight end blocking on the goal line situations? They were really, really good. Jelani Thurman crushed a dude on Quinshon Judkins' touchdown run. And then about, 8 minutes later in game time or so, he crushed a dude on on offense where there was Will Howard scrambles, goes down, the ball squirts out, and the Tennessee guy picks it up, and Jelani Thurman just destroyed him. I was waiting for a targeting call on that, but I don't know if you can have a targeting call on a dead play. But Patrick Gerd had a nice block as the fullback when they were in that 14 package. Really good job of a deep group of tight ends that we have talked about throughout the season. But we also talked about how in the lead up to this game, tight ends have been effective in the passing game against Tennessee. And we saw in this one, you had G. Scott with, how many catches did he have? He had
4 catches, 39 yards on 5 targets.
And Will Kazmarek 1 for 7. And Will Howard, the tight end, size of a tight end, had a catch as well. But they did some damage. So credit to the tight ends in this one, all of them, because even Max LeBlanc got in there at the end, I believe.
Yeah, they played a lot of guys at the end of that game. But yeah, the 14 personnel, I was trying to remember, have we ever seen like just true 14 personnel with like 4 actual tight ends, and it's not just, hey, here's an extra offensive lineman, or
here's Mitch Rossi.
Mitch Rossi, who was like kind of a fullback. 14 personnel that feels like it's a new look for this year. At least that formation was a new look for this year. And you just think about, they've shown that T formation.
Mm-hmm.
That you're just putting more stuff on film now for Oregon have to worry about. And you're also, again, let's look ahead. There's a lot of tight ends in there who can catch a pass off of that of that formation. You show that, and now you're going to run play action off of it in the Rose Bowl or something. But that was a big game for the tight ends for G. Scott. He had a couple big plays. There was one where I don't think he got the first down, but it was 2nd and 10, and it turned into 3rd and 2 or something like that. But then he had like a 20-something yarder down the field during a big drive at one point. That is just, if you can just sprinkle that in a little bit, like he probably took a couple catches away from Carnell Tate, but that just makes you take, the defense has to focus on so many more things. It can't just be, okay, well, we just have to worry about Jeremiah Smith. Okay, well, we have to worry about Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka. Okay, well, you have to worry about TreVeyon Henderson because he's coming out of the backfield sometimes. And then there's Carnell Tate, who, will put up, had a 2-touchdown game a couple games ago. And okay, well, now you have to worry about the tight end too. And, is Will Howard going to run the ball? You're giving the defense too many things to have to focus on at once. And it's fine. You can do that. You're going to have guys who are assigned to all those, but you can't double team all those guys. And you probably want to double team more of those guys than you can. So that just kind of brings another element to the Ohio State attack, where you think about the Ohio State offense and it's like the Jeremiah Smith do something cool play, or TreVeyon Henderson runs and does something cool. And it's like, no, there's a lot more to it. And that tight end unit definitely helps make that true. Let's see. How about, I think you probably talked about this, and this is one where I was trying to follow the action and just completely lost the ball. The throw to Emeka Egbuka down the middle on the second drive, that might have been Will Howard's best throw all year. It was impressive coverage from the Tennessee linebacker, who was he got tough Borlanded to a certain degree and got thrown in, it was just kind of like, that's probably not a winning matchup for Tennessee, but did a pretty good job getting back, but just right in there. And there was a throw to Jeremiah Smith where it's, he gets a little bit of separation in the end zone, and it's just, the ball is just right there. It's just, he's running and he just goes 6 out of the arms and the ball just drops in there. It's just, I think that might have been Will Howard's best game so far. And that was a game where you needed Will Howard's best game. And now you've done it in probably a little more difficult conditions. Now you can do it in Pasadena, where it should be, I haven't looked at the forecast yet, but I assume 60 and sunny, just based on literally every other time of Pasadena. Higher? 70?
72 and sunny, buddy.
Sounds terrible. Hell on earth, some might say. I don't know. That's why I'm almost like, I don't care for this place, and I don't like watching football here.
That throw, yes, very impressive. And you mentioned being tough. Borland did that. They did it on that one. They did it on the Jeremiah Smith that turned into an interception. They matched him up. A linebacker got matched up on him. Like, that's not fair. And then the wheel route to TreVeyon Henderson was Joshua Joseph's, and they kind of ran a pick play against him. Like, it's not necessarily a pick, it's just the defensive angle is running through G. Scott's route, and so he kind of has to wait his turn. It's like, you're putting a defensive end on TreVeyon Henderson who's running a wheel route. Good luck. For two, now you've got to run through some interference. Even worse luck. And they did a good job of finding some mismatches, and that doesn't even include, why don't we just throw it up to Jeremiah Smith and see what happens, because they took advantage of some people and picked on them, and that was a really, really good design throughout that whole thing. While we're talking about TreVeyon Henderson, because there were times in this game where as he's running, he looks like he's floating. Like, his feet do not stay on the ground long. Like, his touchdown run, he's barely touching the ground, and he's doing just a little shoulder dip, and that's getting a guy to juke, and he's like, all right, now I've got the corner. This is a second touchdown run, the 26-yarder, once he breaks through, like, he is barely touching the ground, and he is running so fast, so fresh, and this is part of the plan all season long for the Ohio State offense, for the running game, keep these guys fresh, because who knows what it'll look like in December and January. And it looked like this. And it was really impressive just how smooth and how athletic, and just, again, it looked like he wasn't even hardly touching the ground. His feet did not stay on the ground for long. And yes, I understand that's how you are mobile, but like he's extremely, extremely impressive in this one.
Well, I was just I have pictures of his last touchdown run, and I was thinking, I don't think he was touching the ground in either one. No, he's floating in both of those pictures. But, this goes
He's a witch.
Does he float? I don't know. They didn't throw the goalpost in the river, and they didn't throw him in the river either, so I guess we'll never know. He is, I think, a testament to why they split up the carries and brought in Quinton Judkins, and you compare and contrast those two guys to Dylan Sampson, and Dylan Sampson, this kind of goes back to the Nico Iamaleava getting thrown into trench warfare again in the fourth quarter of a game that's 42-10. Dylan Sampson got hurt because Josh Heupel was playing him with 3 minutes left or whatever, maybe not even 3 minutes left, against Vanderbilt in a game where there are multiple touchdowns. He should be sitting on the bench. Mm-hmm. He had as many carries as TreVeyon Henderson and Quinton Judkins combined this season. So why do those guys look fresh? Why are those guys healthy? Well, I have some suspicions. And yeah, Henderson this is the TreVeyon Henderson that has been promised. He came in as a 5-star. He had a really impressive first year, and you have the solid first year, and it's like, oh man, this is, it is just going to be stonks for him, just straight up for the next 3 or 4 years. And then had injury problems and missed time. And, that was just, it was a little bit of a winding path for him. But man, this year, this is the TreVeyon Henderson that Ohio State fans have been waiting on since they heard about this 5-star running back from Virginia, and what is he going to be and how good is he going to be? And it's like, well, you're seeing it now. This is what you've been waiting for. And, the long wait has sort of paid off for Ohio State fans.
Yeah, very much so.
All right. So, boy, so many different choices. Let's talk for a moment about just the officiating, because I wanted to wait on the officiating conversation. I didn't want to weigh in on it during the game last night, because it's like, I know people on Twitter are always complaining about the officiating, and this was not like Ohio State got hosed. This was, that crew did not have a good game. There was a pass interference call against Jordan Hancock that probably should have been. There was a pass interference call against maybe Lathan Ransom at one point that probably should have been called. How many times during the course of the year do you hear the officiating expert on the broadcast say, yeah, these guys blew that call? Like, never. And then I'm just going to cite the Ohio State anti-Ohio State calls that Bill LeMonnier criticized them for openly. The pass interference non-call on the throw where the linebacker was covering Jeremiah Smith. How did he cover him? Well, there was probably a little too much clutching and grabbing and pushing and shoving. Number 2, was the catch a catch? He didn't think so. I thought it was one of those, like, it was probably too close to call, but he didn't think it was a catch. And then the Kenyatta Jackson roughing the passer call, which was kind of like, what? He said that was like, yeah, it was not a soft call. And he didn't even talk about the fact that it was a bad call because the offensive lineman is pushing Kenyatta Jackson in the back. So your offensive lineman is pushing your guy onto you, and then you're like, no, you're getting on me. That's like, what do you want the guy to do? So yeah, it was just, and this was not an officiate, this was not a thing where, oh, the officials cost Tennessee the game or the officials cost Ohio State the game or any of that, because it just was not a very well officiated game. And when you're getting called out by the officiating guy on the broadcast, who is, probably trying to maintain good relations within the officiating crew or community like that, that's like, yeah, man, that was pretty much a swing and a miss.
I kind of view this one as seeing this Ohio State game and having so many penalties called on Tennessee. And mind you, I think there was 5, which we know is almost a season high for Ohio State opponents. I just thought, hey, this is interesting. It's like when you go to a new place, you're like, all right, I will try the local flavor here. I will try the mom and pop pizza. This isn't bad. And so while sure, the floors are sticky and there are things that weren't great, I thought it was just interesting to finally see some penalties called against Ohio State's opponents for a change. So, but that roughing was unacceptable to me. But look, I'm not going to criticize anybody because nobody's ever criticized me. But again, that's a bad call. Tom, let me talk about, what do we want? I don't want to, I've got a lot, but how about this? Carnell Tate, who 1 target on the day. The dude blocks his butt off all game long. He's in and out of the game for a tight end or he's out there regardless, running routes all game long. When they call upon him, he's always ready and he makes a catch. And I don't think he gets enough credit, and he's not this, Jameson Williams, just go clear things out and we're going to throw it to everybody else. I think he's better than that, but also he does a lot, and it may go unnoticed because of Emeka and Jeremiah Smith, but it shouldn't. He's a really, really good receiver, and he's a really good blocker. And again, when you need him, he's there. And that might be for an entire drive where he catches 4 passes for 68 yards against whoever it was a month ago, or it's just, if it's 3rd and 7 and I'm needed, I'll be there. And he's just really reliable. Would like to see him get more targets, but again, there's only so many to go around. Jeremiah Smith only had 6 targets in this game. So he stop scoring touchdowns, and maybe stop scoring touchdowns so readily, and maybe make the drives a little bit longer, and there'll be more targets for everybody.
And I think he really had more than 6 targets. It showed up as 6 in the box score. That was 6 catches on 6 targets, but he was targeted on the one that got intercepted. So that was 1 more. Mm-hmm. And then there were a couple where there was one where Tennessee had 12 guys on the field and they threw it to him, but the play didn't count. Mm-hmm. And there was another one where they threw it to him and there was a pass interference call. Mm-hmm. So really they threw it to him 9 times, not 6, the box score. At least the one I think is wrong. And then there's a couple others where there's like, there was some context there, but that's probably not enough touches for him. But to your point again, like there's lots of different guys around who you can throw the ball to and hand the ball to, and that's all. That is a difficult choice because you have a lot of good options, but you really can't complain about how they used him on Saturday night. Let's talk a little bit about the back 7 for Ohio State. You mentioned briefly the linebackers earlier and Cody Simon breaking Nico Iamaleava's helmet. I mean, there was some hitting during that game. We have seen some Ohio State games in the past where, like the Clemson Fiesta Bowl in 2019, where that was a physical game. There was some hitting in that game. That was like that last night too. There were some big hits. Cody Simon had some big hits. Sonny Styles, Zach Dumas, a Tennessee running back in the flat. I mean, just absolutely just turned him into a cloud of mist. It was that there were some big hits. And then Lathan Ransom, I don't think we've talked about Lathan Ransom on this show yet. He didn't have an enormous game statistically. I don't think he was near the top of tackles. 12 tackles for Cody Simon, 8 for JT Tuimoloau, 7 for Caleb Downs. Lathan Ransom had 5, but The one that really jumped out to me was Tennessee had it. I think it was 3rd and 7, it was 3rd and 8, maybe first drive of the second half. And they're running a speed option into the boundary. And it's like very clearly it's 3rd and 8. We're going to get 4 yards and then we're going to go for it on 4th down because we're going to try and seize momentum here. You're going to get 6 and make it 4th and 2. And Lathan Ransom just blows it up. I think it was a loss of 5. And it's like, well, now it's 4th and 13. So now we're not going to go for it and we're going to punt it away. And that was a moment when Tennessee had some momentum and they had cut it from 21-0 to 21-10. And they get the ball to start the second half and they picked up a couple first downs. And it's like, oh, well, maybe they're going to make this interesting. And then Lathan Ransom said, nope. And then Ohio State immediately hit the gas and pulled away. That actually, Tony, I'm going to steal one more here. Ohio State goes down after that, scores a touchdown. It's 28-10. Tennessee gets the ball back. Josh Heupel has it. It's 4th and 4 near midfield. You're down 28-10. You've got 6 minutes left in the third quarter. You need 3 scores. It's 6 minutes left in the third quarter. Your team has given up 28 points, including the offense going through your defense like a hot knife through butter on the last defense. 4th and 4 near midfield. 6 minutes left in the third quarter. Tony, seems like a great time to punt. Punt. Trust your defense that's given up 4 touchdowns in like 6 drives and probably should have given up 5 touchdowns in 6 drives.
No. But again, we also talked in the lead up to this game about how unaggressive he is on 4th downs. And that was an example of that. And Ryan Day was aggressive and we saw the results of that and the mentality that, that colors the entire picture there. The secondary, Lathan Ransom, I think he's going to be so missed when he's gone. Not unappreciated. I think people appreciate him now, but that 5-yard loss that you talked about was awesome. And watching him and everybody on that defense communicate I'm watching it live a little bit, but then seeing it again just reminded me and triggered me on how much communication goes in really quickly. And they were never out of sorts. They were never caught off guard. The tempo was not an issue. They were ready. There were times where they're waiting for Tennessee. Like they're basically, okay, we're done. Hello, it's getting cold. Can you snap the ball already? Like, come on, let's move it along. Let's go. And Jim Knowles wanted the fastest play calling defense in the country. He's got it. And the communication was fantastic. It was on point. There were a couple times like Lathan Ransom would have to come running in and tell somebody something, and then he'd go running back out. And then there was, I don't know how many busts there were in this game for Ohio State. I don't know if there were any. I know Davison Igbinosun slipped on one that was an incompletion, but really Aaron Scott got beat deep at the end of the game, but that's pointless. There was nothing like, how did they let that guy edge? Good thing, Nico Iamaleava didn't see that guy because that would have been 6. Like, I don't remember any of those. I didn't see any of those in the replay.
There was one where I think it might have been Tui Moloau broke up a pass in the flat where they referenced the fact that the guy was open and, the receiver was open in the flat. And, they never showed a wide shot. So I don't know if was open means there was a guy 4 yards away or 20 yards away. But really, you did not have major busts. And, Aaron Scott, being the 3rd string corner going up against Tennessee's 1st string wide receivers. Like, yeah, you're not going to win all of those. Bryce West winning his one-on-one battle, that was impressive. Like, it's just one play. And, Aaron Scott was there. He wasn't like he was completely toasted. He just, he was one stride behind. So, yeah, that was, I thought the young corners kind of, held their own, especially going up against number 1 receivers and number 1 quarterback when you've got 3rd string defensive linemen in there and 3rd string corners in there.
Yeah, for sure. What else you got? I've got a few that I can rattle off.
Yeah, I thought, first of all, I had the thought watching the first quarter. Do you remember the Florida A&M game in 2013? Ohio State being this close to having a 28-0 lead before Tennessee completed a pass. I was like, man, I haven't thought about the Florida A&M game in a while, but there was, I think it was the college football nerds had a tweet about, everyone criticizes the SEC for playing FCS teams in November, but no one's criticizing Ohio State for playing one in December. And I saw it and I'm like, that's funny, but it's like obviously a joke. And then you watch it and it's like, well, this is a lot like what that would look like if you were playing an FCS team. If they're playing Grambling and they're up 28-0 before they throw, 21-0 before they complete a pass, or that close to 28-0, like you're going to be like, yeah, it's an FCS team. That's what it looks like. Well, it was 3 different letters. It was that kind of team, with 3 different letters from the South, and it looked like that again. Let's see. Can we talk about the rotation on the defensive line, which has been a, kind of a sticking point for Ohio State fans for a good bit of the season. And I think there has been a lot. I mean, we've talked for years about the fact that like there's not a ton of rotation on the defensive line for a game that was somewhat in doubt in the second half. During the drive, I noticed it during the drive when I think it was 28-10 in the third quarter. The game's not over at that point. They're playing, at that point we had already seen Hero Kanu, Edric Houston, Caden McDonald, Taiwan Malone was on the field at that point. And that's just the guys in the middle. You saw a bunch of Mitchell Melton, you saw a bunch of Caden Curry, you saw a bunch of Kenyatta Jackson. They played, that's 6, 9, plus the other 4, so 13 defensive linemen at least. And I may have missed someone at some point in like a goal line situation or something like that. They played a ton of guys. Then after that, you see Will Smith in there and you see Jason Moore in there towards the end of the game. And I mean, they really went down the depth chart, played their depth, which is great. That's a huge benefit because they are going to need a lot out of Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. So to get them, sort of in, out, get the job done and be able to move on with life and limit their snaps, that's going to be real big because there's another big game on tap in 10 days or so. So you don't have the luxury of running those guys into the ground and risking someone getting rolled up on. I mean, just the improved rotation at the defensive line is going to be good for this year's team. It's going to be good for next year's team.
I will say they did not look tired after the game or in the fourth quarter. So that was good. Tom, real quick, not real quick. I talked about this a little bit on the post game. What did you think of the near butt fumble?
The butt fumble was every once in a while you see one of these things and it's like the freaky athleticism and the reaction time of these guys is incredible. Like you watch TreVeyon Henderson hurdle someone and it's like, this is obviously an incredible athletic act. To have a football, like it looked like Will Howard was trying to pull it and Judkins kind of took it. And then it's like, it's on my side and I'm still running and I'm like, well, I've got this. And now it's behind me and I've still got it and I'm still running. And it wasn't that he didn't drop it and just fell to the ground and lost a yard or two. Like he picked up yardage on that play. That was, I get to see this in person where it's like, you don't really appreciate how big these guys are because they're all big. And it's like, you don't have like normal person, like where, Rich Eisen running the 40 at the combine where it's like, just to put this in perspective, here's what an actual human being looks like as opposed to, these, monsters doing this. I see this all the time with like, you don't really understand. I'm 6'2". I'm not a short guy. And I stand next to these guys on the field, like the linemen. And it's like, hello, sir, how is the weather up there? That was one of those that it probably went underappreciated in terms of the just incredible athleticism and, mental reflexes that it took to make that happen.
He picks up 5 yards and the entire time he's like, yeah, like a loaf of bread on his backside basically and gets it to come around. Like, I don't know how you don't fumble that. And Will Howard's just like on his knees, like watching it, like, what just happened? First down? Or it's like, we're down to the 1. Okay. All right. Fantastic. I watching this, they got close to blocking some punts and that's plural. And it wouldn't be a shock if we see a blocked punt at some point. And this may have just been Tennessee's alignment, but they were getting close to doing that. Cody Simon, fantastic. I can't say enough about that guy. Not just because he broke a helmet. That's fantastic. Good job. But just really, really solid defender for them and is only getting better. I would say no more spying an athletic quarterback with the defensive end. You've got other guys that can do it. JT Tuimoloau is very athletic for a defensive end, but Nico Iamaleava has got some moves. And the last thing for me is, nope, I'm good. How about this, Tom? The Ryan Day wink to Jack Sawyer.
Mhm.
Did you see that at the end?
I
That was,
did.
I think that was the only time we saw Ryan Day smile the entire afternoon, or the entire evening, and into the evening.
Yeah, that was. I think you got a little sense for how much of a relief that was. Like he was very, very stern, serious, whatever you want to say, focused all game. I think at that point it was kind of like deep breath, exhale, and then was back to serious during the post game based on what you guys were talking about last night. And that might have been, how long did you let yourself enjoy this game? Whatever time that was on the clock until the end, and then by the time you get up to the post game, you're already on to Oregon to a certain degree. I thought it was interesting, the Jack Sawyer story about trying to go out to eat in Pickerington and getting crap for Reynoldsburg, crap for from Ohio State fans about that. But these are guys who are all kind of going through this together to a certain degree, and obviously there's a lot more pressure on Ryan Day than there is on Jack Sawyer. But it's these are all guys who are going through this stressful time together, and I'm sure there's a little bit of a relief to have. Okay, you're through that one, and now on to the next one. And it is a unique situation to be kind of in that boat together, where it's probably hard to understand if you're not inside there, what that's really like. But yeah, that was definitely two guys who have sort of shared an experience going through all of this together. Tennessee finished with 152 yards, which is like, boy, that's a lot of, that's a good number of rushing yards.
Right.
Boy, I was busy getting set up in the Tennessee post-game interview room and missed Tennessee's last touchdown drive, which was pretty much all running plays. It was I think they had 9 rushes for 65 yards in the fourth quarter. Before that, they had 87 yards rushing through 3 quarters at just under 3 yards per carry. That is getting your butt whooped. And sure, it is. Some of it was sack yardage, sure, but that was the Ohio State defense really dominating Tennessee in a way that even the final stats didn't quite show how dominant it was. And man, the final stats looked pretty dominant. That was something I wanted to mention. And then we had talked last night on the post-game show about the field goal right before the half. And I said I wanted to kind of like watch it and sort of see, because that was another one where I was like running into edit pictures. I was kind of like listening to the announcer or the PA guy say, "Oh, TreVeyon Henderson had a long run. G. Scott had a catch, whatever." And I didn't have the context there. After watching it, yeah, when the green line on the field goal on the field is at the 30 and you've got the ball at the 37, like that's probably really pushing it. I think probably the smart play was to throw one in the end zone, and you take your shot, and maybe you get a PI, maybe you get a touchdown, whatever it is. But also, that does serve a purpose. Now you know. Now you know. Can we? What if we just got it to the 37? Can we? Nope. No, you sure can't. Thank you for asking. Now you know that for the Rose Bowl. Now you know the green line on the field is the green line on the field. Get the ball there, because it wasn't like he hooked it because he just hit it too. He hit it. He was trying to hit it perfectly, and he just pulled it a little bit or whatever. No, it was that landed 5 yards into the end zone. Like, no, that is his range. Is his range. That is his range. That's fine. Now you know that. Now you can call plays and manage your clock according to that.
Yeah, and I think Fowler did say like he was hitting from there in warm-ups, but he had wind behind him or getting close to it. It was a wishful thinking on Day's part, but like you said, at least now you can calibrate and go from there. So I think that's going to do it. If you want to hit the thumbs up before we go, if you're watching on YouTube, we would appreciate that. Hit the bell, subscribe, all of the usuals. And of course, if you're listening on a podcast platform, 5-star rating and review is always appreciated. And as always, you can find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Sign up, $4.99 for your first month. And we've got the Rose Bowl coming up and plenty of coverage before and after, and who knows what else is coming there. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.